Has your perception of life changed since being in Uruguay?
Completely, because in my family,
I think we should move there. What do you think, Rajan?
I was thinking
sounds
where
all
the
right
question's
there.
going to. Welcome to the Global Indian Podcast, the world's greatest journey and the official platform for people of Indian origin. Because let's face it, we are everywhere. Welcome back to The Voyage. This is Season 1, Episode 5, Made in Uruguay. My name is Rajan Nazran and I explore. For over a decade, I have traveled the world, piecing together the kaleidoscope that is our community. I've been held hostage, faced Ebola, and met extraordinary individuals, often in destinations that will surprise you. In this season, I'm joined by my dear friend, screenwriter, actor, and social heart, Kulvindher Ghir. And together we're taking you on a voyage for the ears as we plunge into the human experience of being a person of Indian origin and taking a closer look at the countries we now call home. This episode is an ode to the power of passion. Meet the global Indian who packed up the corporate life in Mumbai for the chef's hat in Uruguay. With a total dislocation of language and culture, you will discover how she took on the challenge and how travel has evolved her perception of Indianness. Welcome to an incredible conversation with a remarkable soul, Aparna Soni, the executive chef and founder of Moksha Restaurant Uruguay. You can find out more about the Global Indian series at the end of this podcast and more details on Moksha Restaurant in Uruguay. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Get up and just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just move. Get up and just.
The thing that I found fascinating was how you got to where you are and what's it like to be you in Uruguay, because you're culturally, linguistically dislocated from everything that you thought was normal. You end up being there as a bioengineer, right?
biotechnological. I am an engineer in biotechnology.
And then you set up a restaurant.
Yeah.
It's like, run me through your life. What's it like to be you?
It's like a typical Indian girl, you do what your parents want you to do, or you get into those typical jobs or typical careers, otherwise you don't have a good life. So for me, I think I never imagined I'll do something like that. I wanted to be a doctor. I ended up being a biotechnological engineer. I ended up in a nice job, like everything was fine. And then I moved here like on a break. Like I used to cook back in India for family and for friends, but not on a regular basis. So, but every time that I would cook, and I remember when I was in college days, it was the MasterChef seasons, no? Yeah. And people would be like, wow, you cook really good. You should set up a restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, one fine day when I have a lot of money and I'm an old woman, when I'm retired, maybe then, when I don't have to work so much. So when I came here, there was no Indian food, nothing. And I couldn't speak the language. It was really difficult. And I came on a break. So about 3 months down the line of the break, my husband was always working and I was at home doing nothing. I just wanted to get out of the apartment, I went to the beach every day. I ran. I watched all the TV shows that I always wanted to watch. I read all the books that I always wanted to read, but like, what more? I started looking for a job, but I was way overqualified for this country.
Yeah.
So I couldn't find a job. Also because I couldn't speak the language, There are very few people who speak English here. It's like primarily like Spanish-speaking country. I started teaching English. That was the only job that I could find.
Yeah.
So we had a lot of teachers who were from England and from the United States, and they started asking me for food, and I started cooking for them, and the word spread, and lot more people started asking me for food. So eventually I ended up opening like a Facebook page to sell food, on the weekends, and people would just order, they would come pick it up. And I don't know when it became like a big thing. Suddenly it became a fashion. Everybody wanted the food. Everybody wanted me to cater for the parties, the companies, private all
The
the big shops of
embassies,
Uruguay.
yeah.
So like one thing led to another, and like 2 years ago, I finally opened the restaurant.
Ah. And was it who taught you to cook in the first place?
I don't know, maybe like it was family or TV. I don't know. I just started cooking.
I
It's
mean,
just
like,
that I was not allowed to enter the kitchen as a child or when I was like in college, like because parents always like, no, you need to study, you need to get a good career, and also
ah.
like I had a pretty privileged life, I would say. That we were brought up with a lot of help around the house. So
Yeah.
I never had to do it. But when I was living alone in Mumbai, I started cooking for my friends a little bit
Okay.
on the weekends, or like primarily for my boyfriend, who's my husband now. He loves to eat and then he loves to cook. So I started cooking a little bit with him. But then when I came here, I was cooking all the time because, I mean, here
Yeah.
you don't get nothing outside.
So
You have to cook
so
all the time.
did you start fusing the food as well then? Because you
I'm
just
doing, yeah, sometimes I do, but in the restaurant I serve like authentic Indian food, like more of Indian street food and the curries. But when I used to cook as a private chef, I used to do these pop-up dinners, and also there are a lot of websites and other places now, like a lot of new startups that have opened. So I did a lot of fusion food. Like this week I'm cooking like for something called as Club de Chefs here. So they have like a chef every week, and they sell out their dishes. So I'm doing like a butter chicken lasagna, and I'm doing like a chicken tikka roll, which is like a sort of kathi roll, but adapted to their tastes.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a little bit of fusion food, but when I opened the restaurant, I wanted it to be very, very authentic. So I mean, I didn't want it to be like one of
well,
the Mexican restaurants here that sell
yeah,
nothing like Mexican food, you
Yeah.
know.
of course, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, you were original in that sense. In
yeah,
i- i-
yeah, that's
in
the thing
Uruguay, there
because
was nobody else was catering
nobody
the
else
food.
was catering to this because in Uruguay they don't even use salt and pepper in their food. So
Hmm.
they don't season their food at all.
Okay.
So
Wow. Because
it's
I remember
it's
you
like
said on the phone that they've actually got a law there that 10% of your dishes have to be without any salt.
that's correct.
And so now you're bringing Indian cuisine that you have all this impact of flavors, this orchestra of herbs, spices, percent of
I
the
don't
menu.
know. I'm serving some raita without salt, like a palak paneer without salt, some pakoras without salt. You have an option. I mean, in the
Yeah.
menu, you have an option that okay, these are the plates because we have to have them displayed on the
Yeah,
menu. Like we have like a salt-free section.
yeah.
So I mean, so we have the same dishes, the original dishes, and also like the salt-free version because I had to think, okay, what are the dishes that I actually make without salt, and I don't have to keep the preps ready
Yeah,
Mm.
because most of the curries are already pre-made.
yeah.
Is that
So
is that for health reasons? Is that the government health reason for
that's
cutting
for
down on
health
salt?
reasons, yes. Because
Oh
like a
wow.
few years ago, there were a lot of people with blood pressure. So the government put up a law that I mean, you cannot, for example, put condiments on the table. And they have come up with a slogan which says "Menos sal, más vida," which is less salt, more life. So they were dealing with all these things, but last year they came up with this new law that any restaurant has to have 10% of the dishes like salt free. So I mean, yeah, I mean for us it's
Okay.
like more difficult
Yeah.
because we come from
Yeah.
a country where we use salt and almost everything.
How big is the Indian community in Uruguay? Because
There are around, I would say, 400 people.
and
Uh,
before that, before you set up, what was their notion of Indianness in terms of the Uruguayans towards India or people of Indian origin?
I mean, they have the same. Like there are a lot of people who watch these movies like Slumdog Millionaire, and these people who have been to India in the 80s and 90s, and they think that India is a very poor country or we are like very backwards, and because this is what they see. They don't know. Like right now, it's changing. They pity the condition of Indian women, which I tell them, no, it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
Because there are people who ask me, oh, do you have to wear a burqa in India? I'm like, no. And like, what is it like wearing a pair of jeans? Like, we wear that in India as well. They have these notions which are brought by all these movies, or maybe when they visited India in the early 80s or 90s. And now it's changed completely. And also there is like this other group of people who connect India very spiritually. And also there is like some charities to do with Mother Teresa. So they know India through Mother Teresa, or they know India through Gandhi, or they know India like as now from the art of living or the yoga and the meditation. One of the things that literally was very surprising to me was that the number of people that travel to India from here, like every fifth person I meet has been to India or is going to India. I mean, they
Wow.
want to travel that far. Yes, they want to travel that far, and there are a lot of people who have actually lived there for months. I have a friend who went to India to study how to play a sarod, for example.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yeah.
and he lived in Kerala in slums, and just to learn sarod, he sold his house to go and learn how to play a sarod. Yeah, and so there are like all kinds of people. But I mean, right now, my main or primary job as an unofficial ambassador
I was going to
is
say, because
it's to tell them, okay, India is not what you think it is. It's changed a lot. It's a land that's been producing a lot of engineers and doctors, and we're working
yeah.
on the
But what,
and
because you've almost brought this visual part into the country, because you got a restaurant, and so therefore now it's almost for them validating what Indianness is. But
yeah,
you're the modern contemporary version of India, whereas they're stuck obviously 1980s, 1990s. How
right.
has India changed for you? And how has your Indianness changed since going to Uruguay?
I think my Indianness has not changed a lot. What I think, I have become more Indian after moving here, because I've noted like things from India which I never noticed before while I was living there.
Yeah.
And every time that I go back, all these questions that people ask me while I'm living here, I mean, I start noticing all those things, and I start realizing that maybe, yeah, some of those things are true and some of those things are not. Like, for example, when I see the population, when I see the poverty in India, coming from like a privileged family, or you don't actually see all those kind of things, or you don't, I mean, I think you turn a blind eye to
Yeah.
the things, or I mean, they're there, but you never notice them, and you live in your own bubble when you're in India. But once you go back, it comes like a shock to you, because nobody has ever asked you those questions before. How is it to be like, for example, are you safe in India? When I go to India, sometimes I feel really safe, sometimes I do not. But when I was living in India, I never felt unsafe. And things like those, poverty, for example, how people live on the streets and all those things. And also, I mean, this new rich India, or this like modern developing India, I mean, there are contrasts. I mean, I would call India as a country of like various contrasts. I mean, it's wide, it's huge. But I mean, living here has made me more spiritual. It's made me more cultural. I've started to ask more questions to my parents regarding Ayurveda, regarding our religion, regarding like a lot of things which I never even like gave a damn while I was living there. So there are a lot of things that have changed, and I think it's for the betterment of myself. And also because when somebody asks me a question, I want to tell them what it is truly like. For example, why don't you eat cows? It's like a question, like almost everybody asks me that question, because this is a country that primarily lives.
I was going to say, it's a
cows.
state culture, isn't it?
There are 3 cows per person.
Wow. And it's not for milking purposes either. That's the thing, yeah. Okay.
So I mean, there are 3 million people and there are 9 million cows. So
Yeah.
They
Wow.
have like road crossings for cow. You have to stop like on the highways. There is like a board which is like there's a cow and there are timings that the cows are going to cross the roads at this time. So you have to like actually stop for an hour
Are
on the
you
highways
kidding me?
to cross
Oh,
to let the cows cross the street.
Do you know, how has Uruguay changed you? Because the thing is, as a community, we are all over the globe in so many different
Yeah,
numbers, but everywhere that we go, we're almost like a good chutney. We revolve within that culture. We kind of get it moving there.
yeah.
How has Uruguay changed you as a person, or even travel for that matter?
I mean, traveling for me, for example, for me it was like the first time I left my country, I went to Germany, but I was working all the time and I couldn't, like, I wouldn't interact so much with people when I lived in other countries or when I was traveling because, you would travel, you would go to your hotel, come back, work, all that things. But when I moved here, I started actually meeting people, talking to them. And also, these people are very inquisitive. They ask you a lot of questions. They invite you in their houses, they'll invite you for a barbecue. Asado is like a big culture here. Every Sunday the families get together and they do like a barbecue and then they invite the family and friends, and so that ways, I mean, I think I became like more open. I mean, there were a lot of, I mean, for example, this is a country where like, well, the gay marriages have been legal for like quite a long time. So, I mean, it's the Q community is like really pronounced here, and
Yeah.
people are very free and open. So it was kind of a cultural shock to me when we came here, like in the start. But then, I mean, you understand and you start like learning and growing with it, and also, for example, marijuana. This is the first country to make marijuana legal. So marijuana is legal here. You can just smoke off anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, these are the things that this is a very progressive country, and
Yeah.
like I think it's small and nice, and
mm,
so I would say it's made me very open, and I mean it's changed me in a way. Like in India, we have these sort of, I mean, I won't say we believe in the caste system, but we have like a class system, I would say, now
Yeah.
in India. But here there is no class system. Also, there are these little things that no work is small, and every you could do
mm.
everything when you're living here. I mean, though, just the way that you treat people, just the way that you treat your health, like these little things. I mean, they change you as a person.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Absolutely. So,
sorry,
Connie?
Apna, do you have kids?
No, not yet.
Okay. Are you planning to
Yeah.
have them? Are you going to plan to have
Yes.
kids?
Yeah.
And would you go back to India and raise them there, or would you want to
I
stay
would
in
love to raise
Venezuela?
them here actually. I mean, because I feel that in India, the kids nowadays, I have like nieces and nephews, and like all they do is like sit and watch TV or they are with their gadgets all the time. I mean, and also I would say there's a lack of open spaces or lack of safety in India for kids to be outside just by themselves, which is not here. I mean, we have beautiful beaches and we have these beautiful parks, and there's like a very nice culture amongst parents and community. Like just
Mm.
every weekends are dedicated for the families, the evenings are dedicated for the families to be with the kids, and we have a
So,
lot of time here on our hands than we have in India.
can I
So
ask you, what would your kids' first language be then?
I think if they're here, it would be Spanish.
Okay.
Because I myself speak like I myself have started forgetting English words and Hindi words now.
Oh,
Because I'm
wow.
speaking Spanish so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes I speak like something. I'm in a car with my husband, and I'll speak a sentence which will have 2 words of Spanish, 2 words of Hindi, and 2 words of English. And he's like, "What
Wow.
are you saying?" I mean, I forget the names of spices in English and in Hindi, and when I'm
Yeah.
talking to people, just like so. It happens when you live in a country and when you're speaking a different
Yeah.
language all the time.
Is
Because
that
most
because, I was going to say, is that because you're open? Because I'm sure that there's other people in your community that came over that haven't taken the time to integrate that well.
Yeah, I think so because I don't know. I mean, that's one of the things that people tell me, that wow, we are amazed with the Spanish that you speak. And there are Indians who don't even speak a word of Spanish because they don't want to learn it. I mean, they think, okay, we are here for a year or two, and then at work we don't need it because they're all working for an English-speaking company, and they don't make the efforts to learn a language. For me, it's very important that I feel that when you are in a country, you should learn the culture, the language, at least try. And I mean, there are a lot of things that are really nice about the Uruguayan culture. It's a country about kisses and hugs and sharing and you know so
Well,
um,
but amazingly, who taught you English then?
I mean, I learned English from like at home, at school. Like,
So in India, they were teaching you English as a
of course,
secondary
yes.
language.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I studied in one of the schools from the British councils. So, I mean, almost everything that you learn in India is in English, and
Yeah.
only Hindi is just one subject.
Yeah. And in most cases, almost Hindi is a second language. In some
Yeah.
places, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. I remember being
Crazy.
in Mumbai. I remember there's obviously my broken Punjabi trying to speak to somebody. And they just spoke to me in English. They said, listen, just speaking English is far easier. I was like, all right, fine. It gives you a bit more of an understanding of how bad my Hindi really is, Aparna. So that's more than anything. But that's
Yeah.
interesting. That's a really interesting question, Khalid, because if you all bring your kids up speaking Spanish, would Hindi ever be part and parcel of that? Or are you saying
I think,
actually,
yes, we talk about it often, like with my husband, and I said, okay, I mean, we're gonna try to speak to them in Hindi at home
yeah,
so that they don't lose it. And I would actually make an effort to make them learn how to read and write Hindi, because it's one of the things that I don't want them to forget. That happened to me like 2 years ago. I went to India and I was writing something, and my father asked me to write something, and I had to write his name, and I couldn't spell his name in Hindi. And my sister was sitting right beside me, and she started yelling, no, your siblings, and no matter
Yeah.
how old you are, you're still siblings.
Yeah.
And she started yelling, Dad, she forgot how to write your name. So because my father's name has two S's and two different kinds of S's.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, the last S is that S. And so that's when I realized, okay, I have to teach my kids how to read and write Hindi.
How interesting. Are you class now from your sister's perspective? Are you an NRI now?
I think so. I mean, they call me an NRI because it happens all the time when I go to India. I mean, I'm so Uruguayan in my ways that I went to my sister-in-law's wedding, and in the weddings you have these waiters who serve you food. So I just was talking to one of the waiters, and without knowing, I just kept my hand on his shoulder, talking like this, and my sister was standing right beside me, and she was like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Because for me, my waiters or my staff or anybody that I work with, it's the same.
Yeah.
I don't treat them in different ways. I mean, we treat them equally and we treat them in a nice way. This is not Uruguay.
Yeah. It's those cultural elements, right?
It's the cultural elements that are there also. I mean, I cannot go back to that life. I mean, of course, my parents live in Jhansi and my sister lives in Jhansi. She's a very um,
affluent area in Mumbai, yeah.
yeah, and then they're like they go back to sleep at 10.
Yeah. And that's what time you're having dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the things, Uruguayans eat so late. I mean, the dinner time for them is usually 10:30. So I mean, I have to open straight from 7 for my American and British clients, and then like until 1 or 12:31 in the night for my Uruguayans. So I mean, all the other restaurants, they open at 8 and they close at 11:30. But because we serve such a wide variety of
Yeah.
clients, we have to be open earlier for them because they wanted me to open at 6. I'm like, who's gonna eat at 6?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow! So do you do all the cooking in your restaurants then, or do you
I
have you
do.
got
I
stuff?
mean, now I have a help. like he's from Pakistan, and he's like helping me a lot. But
Mhm.
when I didn't have, I am the primary person who cooks. I mean, I have help who makes me all the preps. They'll cut and chop, and they'll keep everything ready, and then I'm gonna go and finish off the things. And because I
Mhm.
think one of the most important parts of my job is to attend the people,
Yeah.
because everybody who comes here, they want to see my face, they want to talk to me, I mean, they want to like meet me, and just even if for 2 minutes they want to ask me questions about the food, or because a lot of people who are trying this food for the first time in their lives.
And
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they've never tried a curry in their life before, and I mean, they don't know the difference between anything, like when it comes to tastes,
Yeah.
because maybe they would use some kind of herbs like perikil or like basil or parsley, things like those, but nothing more.
Then how much of that authentic Indian cuisine then do you have to doctor towards local taste buds? Because you told me a
I
story on the
mean,
phone that you got different spice levels as well that
yes,
you use as well.
yes. What I do is what I've started offering at the restaurant is because I cater to such a wide variety of people. I offer 3 spice levels. I call it the Uruguayan. I call it Uruguayan spicy, British American, and Indian spicy. So when people come now, even when people would order food online, like through Uber or something, they in the comments, in the notes, they will put me, I want Indian spicy, because it's
Wow.
been registered in their minds what to
Mm.
order. I
Yeah.
mean, and there's a like re Uruguayo. It's like very, very Uruguayan spicy. They'll ask me because that's how they've been trained to order food, and and this is one of the first things that the waiters also tell the people, apart from our suggestions. And they said, okay, we have 3 spice levels, and don't worry. And because people are really afraid to try
Yeah.
this food, they're afraid of the spiciness, they're afraid of
Are
the.
there any particular ingredients that you have to substitute for the Uruguayan taste buds?
I mean, they hate cilantro. I mean, they hate coriander leaves, for example.
Really?
And yeah, and I'm like, okay, what do I do now? So
Yeah.
I just replace it, or just don't put it, or I would ask if they would want it, because, and then they hate cumin. They don't like cumin. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I recently came to know why I don't like cumin is because, I mean, this is a country of meat, and there was a time during the crisis in 2002 when people were serving the meat which had gone bad by adding cumin to it so that they want to
Oh.
cover the taste.
Goodness. Yeah.
So that's why they don't like cumin. So, I mean, I have to literally tell them, I have to beg them to try, and you're not gonna. The other thing is also they don't know how to use the spices correctly. So,
Yeah.
I mean, if I always tell people, if you don't cook the spices properly, you're gonna have like a bad taste. I mean,
Mm.
imagine you eating raw cumin, it's gonna taste awful.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the thing that, I mean, apart from running a restaurant, I have to like literally teach people how to cook with the spice. And I also do these workshops and classes. And I mean,
Does
people come and
so does
learn.
your culture or religion come into your cooking?
Yeah, I maybe because I don't cook beef.
Okay.
Like primarily because I can't imagine a dish with beef. Uh, and I mean, yeah, I cook pork because my husband eat pork
Mm.
now, so it's okay. I mean, I am a vegetarian myself, so I don't eat any any
Yeah.
of those things.
Yeah.
I cook, but then my husband comes
He
and
has
he
to
tastes.
taste it. It sounds like a really good thing for him, right? It's like
Yeah, and then I have volunteers all the time. Like, okay, if you need a volunteer to do the tasting, we can
yeah.
we can go and we can taste your food. So
Uh,
sometimes when I'm doing a cooking class or I'm
how
doing
long
a
have you
live
been vegetarian?
all my life.
Okay. This is great.
Do you think it will change one day whilst in Uruguay? Because you're vegetarian in India, and it's quite easy to be a vegetarian in India because everything's there.
Yeah.
In Uruguay, do you think there are times that you may start to shift
I don't know.
slightly?
Fried meat, it's not that I've not tried it. It's just I don't like it. I mean, I've tried eating chicken, like when I travel, like I've eaten it. I have tried fish. My husband tries a lot that, okay, it won't taste like fish, just try and like, if it won't taste like fish, why should I try it?
Yeah. Well, here's a I was going to ask, if you don't mind me asking, obviously marijuana is legal in Uruguay.
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, I have actually.
Okay. And
Yeah.
and what was it like for you? Would you have done that in India?
I think maybe yes. The thing is that I'm not a smoker, so it's very difficult for me to smoke. So I mean, I've tried eating it though in a brownie, like various times. I mean, because it's this, you go to a beach and like people are there selling you brownies,
And
and
when
then
in Rome, you have to, yeah, fair
yeah, you
enough.
have to be like Roman, but it's like the marijuana culture also here is very open because if you're meeting people, you would always find people like in a circle, like passing it on, and it's very difficult for you to avoid when you're living in a row.
And I think it would be rude to as well, personally. I think if
Yeah, because people, I think, I mean, I've seen people here like grandparents and parents and kids and grandkids like in a circle and passing it on and smoking it. So, I mean, it's very different from our culture, like the Indian culture, if you say. But I think it's the culture here. It's become a culture. It was like since it's become legal. I mean, per person, I think you're allowed to own 4 or 5 plants in a household, so you can actually grow for your own use.
And is that the same thing with alcohol?
Alcohol is also the same. Alcohol is pretty like easily available. You could just go to a supermarket and you can buy it. And also like any parties that you're invited to, alcohol is like a very big part of like the weddings. People just start stocking alcohol like years before because every time they travel, they would go
Yeah.
to like from the airport, they'll buy it from the duty free because it's cheaper. Or they go to the borders where you have the duty free shop just to buy alcohol for the weddings. So I mean, I think it's the culture here. So I mean,
So the other thing I just want to ask as well is because it's a socialist government there, isn't it?
yeah.
So what is the health system like there?
The health system here is very, very good. I mean,
Okay.
it's excellent. I mean, it's completely free for people, like the government healthcare, and it's better than most of the countries, I would say. And also, they have these different, if you, I mean, from your, like a part of your salary goes for medical reasons, and you can choose a private healthcare with that very little amount of money, and the healthcare is pretty good. And of course then you have like all sorts of hospitals and everything, but the government provides you good basic sanitary and health things. It's very, very good compared to the other countries.
I think we should move there. What do you think, Rajan?
I was thinking
sounds
where
all
the
right
question's
there.
going to. Okay. No.
No, because I'm just trying to have a picture of kind of society
Yeah.
as a government that's running, and talking to Apna, who's really seems settled and happy and so open. Very, very, you feel she's part of that representation of Uruguay, not necessarily India.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm like an official ambassador
Yeah.
of both the countries. When I'm in India, I'm like always talking about like how
Uruguay,
great
yeah.
Uruguay is, and it's actually great. It's a nice country to live in. It's a little bit difficult being an entrepreneur because the laws are a little bit twisted
Yeah.
for you to be like a business owner. But apart from that, as a country to live in, as a worker, it's a very, I mean, the government just changed like a month ago.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, so the last government was very pro workers, pro laborers, and so they made a lot of laws which are very good for like workers. And so I mean, people are very
So
content.
they have so they have unions.
They have, yes. Oh my God. Yeah. That's one of the things that actually, I mean, prevents you from doing something big.
Yeah.
And I mean, right now we are in a crisis because of the coronavirus. So most of the businesses are shut down. But I mean, we have to still like take care of our employees and stuff, So it's very.
You see,
It's
I was
very
going to say, I
What's
think.
Uruguay's main economy there then?
a cow meat
Huh?
export.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't get that. What did you say? What's the main economy?
Export of cow meat, beef exports.
Ah, beef.
It's a big export.
It's very famous because all the cow is grass fed. I think I know a lot
Okay.
of people who don't do nothing. They have just these huge fields and they have cows, and I mean each cow is worth like $5,000 to them.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's very. I mean, so it's all the cow is grass fed. I mean, they don't use any chemicals. They like. It's very apparently it's very good. I've never tried it, but apparently it's very good. And also they do a lot of export of soy and paper pulp.
Ah, soy as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, Kuli, are you looking for a socialist vegetarian place to settle down?
Maybe next door just open up a little kind of, a little
gonna
kind
say-
of vegan, vegetarian soy
Stuff.
restaurant fused. Interested
Oh no,
if,
your internet was going there.
in such a country.
Do you know what? But I think it's
Are you
brilliant.
still there?
Yeah, we're still here. Your internet was going slightly off there. But no, I think, but the thing is, your experience for everybody, you've made it work because you're open. What would be your advice to other people who have left India, have gone to countries, and if knowing what you know now, what would you advise them to do? What are your, I don't know, your top 5 tips for them on how to adjust and how to make it in a new culture?
I think the very first thing, if it's a different language speaking country, learn the language. At least try to learn some basic vocabulary, how to greet people, start from there. Number one thing is, I mean, that's what helped me a lot. Then try to understand the culture and not to judge people, based on their culture, because we tend to do that a lot being Indians. The first generation Indians, I would say, the first generation NRIs that move outside. I mean, it's, oh my God, it's different, or, I mean, and try to be a Roman in Rome.
Yeah.
That also helps you a lot. And I mean, with me, it happened. I mean, I would say I was lucky that, I got the right contacts and everybody helped me during my journey of cooking food and everything. So try to make contacts like with Indians and from other people. Also, I think take help from people or take advices from people who are already living there before you try to move in. I come across a lot of Indians here who've come here just to try to immigrate to a different country, try to look for jobs and nothing. So I would say this is not a country where you would find jobs. This is not you could find a job maybe like cleaning or but it's not a country where you would, and it's not a very it doesn't pay you as well. It's not like Europe or United States. So you have to be, if you move to a country like that, you have to be pretty open and do your research before you move, because there's a lot of scams online. And so I think these are the tips that I would give people, and just have fun when you're living there.
Yeah, because I think it's really strange. Because you're right, there's a lot of countries that I've been to, and you come across the community, and they haven't fully integrated as well as possible. But then people say, whose fault is it? Is it the local people? Is it the individual that's moved in? But what you're saying is actually, if you are going to move over, make the effort, do the small things, because therefore it opens up. Like, Kuli, knowing what you know now, what was your perception of Uruguay beforehand?
I didn't know
Football.
much actually when I moved. I mean, when I moved, it was just for a year. So we were like, okay, my husband's gonna have a secure job. We're gonna be well fed, and we could travel. We're gonna live in a nice place close to the beach, and that was what I thought of. And I didn't think much. I just wanted to get the hell out of Mumbai. Because I was damn tired traveling, like driving 4 hours a day, and all those meetings and migraines and stuff. I just wanted to get out of all that things. And but when I moved here, it was different. It was very different. And I mean, what I read about it is that it's Switzerland of uh, mm, um, of Latin America, and I thought it's gonna be snow and things. I literally took it and showed it off. I'm like, it didn't snow. I hate the winters here.
Yeah.
They're humid and rains all the time. It's always gray. Today is so gray.
Oh wow.
Like autumn has just started. So it's that. But
So, I
then
mean,
when
as you asked me what was my perception of Uruguay. I mean, my first notion in this country was the football.
yeah,
You
I
know,
mean,
the
I was not.
cultural.
I was never into sports. I mean, I haven't even, to be very honest, I had never even heard of this of the country. My sister,
Yeah,
my father, my brother, yes, because they follow football.
yeah.
But
They they
football is
they they,
such a
they,
big
they call
culture.
they call it the beautiful game.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a big culture. People are so passionate about football. I mean, people are just crazy. I mean, all the dream. I mean, we Indians dream of being doctors and engineers, or doing MBAs, and becoming CEOs, and owning owning businesses. I mean, here people dream of being footballers. You should just see those little kids, like 4 years, 5 years old, the sportsmanship spirit that they have, and the way that they play in the field. And oh my God, it's just amazing to watch them. And it's a religion. People literally, I mean, there are these two football clubs here, and people literally, when they are the matches, there's so much security. It's like India and Pakistan.
Really?
Yeah. So I mean, football is just, people are so passionate about it. It's very good. And also people in general here are very passionate. They're very, very European, you know.
Ha- has your perception, so quickly, has your perception of life changed since being in Uruguay? Because you said in India people dream of being a doctor, a lawyer, big CEO. Obviously, you're looking to have kids. Has
Yeah.
your perception of life changed in the sense of saying, actually, what I now value is something completely different?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, completely. Because in my family, I would talk about my family. We are three siblings, okay? All three of us are engineers in different fields. My sister is an IT engineer, my brother is a civil engineer, and I'm a biotech engineer. Yeah. The only person who's doing something in his field is my brother, because he also quit his job and he opened his own company. He's now building apartment buildings and he's selling them. My sister, an IT engineer, very smart, very bright. She didn't want to do anything. She just quit everything. She got married to a boyfriend and she opened like a boutique and she's designing clothes. Okay.
Wow.
I'm an engineer in biotechnology and I am running a restaurant and I'm cooking. So I think I would not have these perceptions with my kids. I always talk to my husband, okay, I'm just gonna let them be. And all this pressure that you have being an Indian kid, I mean, I don't want them to have that pressure. I just want them to have like a normal childhood, just to enjoy their lives, being like, let the kids be kids. Like the kids that are here, I see the kids playing in the football fields. I see kids going out for swimming, like doing things that we used to do as a child. And not, I mean, I see my nephew and nieces, they're always either studying or always glued to the television,
Yeah.
and I don't want that life for my kids. I mean, there's so much pressure
Mm.
on them to study, to be like a top ranker. And also I would say there's a lot of competition in India, but Uruguay has, education is free. You could be whatever and you don't have to pay anything. I mean, you can be a doctor, you can be an engineer. I mean, of course you pay after, you like with your taxes, but to study you don't actually have to like go through all those entrance exams, and you don't have to pay on the spot. So it's pretty good. And I just want them to develop life skills more than to them to go and get a good degree. I think that's what I want from my kids,
To live a life.
to live a life and develop life skills. I mean, I've been a carpenter here. I've been like,
Yeah.
I've been everything here. Like I can now operate tools that, I mean, during my engineering days I was afraid of. So it's just
Wow.
like, and when I see people here, they could do everything, and I'm so amazed at, wow. I mean, people can do everything, and like little things that you need help in India.
Yeah. Well, what does Indianness now mean to you?
To me, Indianness now means like more, I'm valuing more of my culture. I mean, all these little festivals that we have and things. I mean, we are so far away from the families, but still we would like to like do something at our house and become more spiritual. I'm eating healthier. Like I'm eating more Indian food than I would eat in India
Yeah.
because I crave for it. And also I would say I have I want to become like a representative of like this very modern plus a very very grounded and cultural Indian woman, just to have like a right blend or a mix between, to find a way somewhere in between, not to lose my Indianness but also try to adopt these newer ways of life.
Interesting. So would you say for you Indianness is less progressive then? So it's steeped
I
in
don't think
culture, steeped in
so.
spirituality, or
I don't think so. It's less progressive. I think the Indianness, the culture, and the spirituality of India is very progressive, because what I have come to understand while I'm living here is that being Indians, we are trying to reach out to the West. We are trying to become more like the Westerners, and especially living in Uruguay, I have understood I mean, I never did meditation before when I was in India, but
yeah,
I mean, I do it here, and I have seen the benefits, and also all the foreigners. I mean, it's like we are running towards becoming more modern, and they are running towards
yeah,
like doing more yoga, doing more meditation, more spiritualness. I think also like eating healthy food. I just did like an Ayurvedic class like last Saturday, and I studied a lot, and I spoke to my grandparents, and I spoke to my parents about these little things that we haven't imbibed in our culture, but you never think of them in ways of medicine or in way of living a life. But I think it's very very progressive. It's just that we have forgotten what it is,
interesting.
and I think that uh, that's why I never want to lose it. I mean, I know people here trying to learn Sanskrit, and I'm just amazed that why would you want to learn Sanskrit?
Yeah.
I think the Indianness is like keeping all the good things, obviously, and trying to become modern. Sometimes, yes, giving more independence, like letting the kids do what they want to do, and get rid of this fake competition that we have. This is what I think.
So that progressiveness and that we're talking about is saying Indianness as a whole has that, but we just need to reconnect to that understanding of what that is. So bringing the
Absolutely.
spirituality into practical lives.
Absolutely. That's what I think. That's what I have like understood while I'm living here, because being a typical, modern Indian person that you are, that you want to leave all those things behind, and then you are just running towards the technology and everything. But at the end of the day, that's what tires you more. And that's
Mm,
for like eating all the different kind of foods that you are eating, and everything what you're doing. I wouldn't say it's wrong. I wouldn't say that it's like the Indian culture and it's everything. You have to find a balance. But I
yeah.
think that you can find that balance if you go back to the Indianness or the Indian way.
Or inner self. Yeah. Absolutely. Do
Yeah,
you know, I find this personally incredibly fascinating. It's interesting for the fact that you moved over to Uruguay. And then it's interesting for the fact that from your career you moved in and then becoming a chef and a well-known chef there. But what I find absolutely fascinating is the progression that you made as a person as soon as you left India and you went there, and then you can reflect back and saying, actually, who am I? Where am I heading to, and what's my purpose as a person?
absolutely. Yeah, because I mean, when I was living in India, all my dreams and all my aspirations were to have like a big car, to have a nice house, to have like, that's what you strive for when you're living, I think, in any big city or it may be any country. But at the end of the day, I realized that's not what life is about.
No.
That's not what I want to imbibe in my kids. That's not what I want them to live for. Because maybe, yeah, I'm a 90s kid. I'm like so I mean, this is what I was taught. But when I reflect on, I am not I don't regret anything that I've done in my life, because I mean, everything that I did in my life was my decision to
Mm.
do. But then now that I feel is that having lived all that, having achieved everything that you wanted to achieve, what is it that you want more? I mean, right now, what I want is for my kids to have like a childhood that they deserve, and for me to live happily, to have that work-life balance, which you don't have anymore.
I think, do you know what? I'm amazed at just the
So
fact that you are who you are, and you're authentically you, and you're there,
Yeah.
and you're enjoying it. And I can't wait to come over to Uruguay, Rickley, with the gang to
Yeah.
do
Yeah,
a docu-series
should.
there.
As soon as all this is over, I hope
Yeah.
to see you here
And
soon.
we're going to eat Indian food whilst, because we're in Rome, at least me personally, I'll conduct the Roman things to do in Uruguay. You know, it only
Of
makes sense to do
course.
that. You know. Another fantastic episode, I'm sure you agree. And if you like that episode, do make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you share, especially with other global Indians out there. More importantly, I think we have found Kulvindher a new home. Uruguay, look at that. To find out more about us and the Global Indian series, make sure you have a look at our social media. You can either go to Instagram at the Nazrans or Twitter pod Global Indian. To find out more about Aparna and her incredible restaurant, you can go to Moksha_Uruguay on Instagram and likewise via Facebook. And I'm sure she'll be happy to take any further questions that you may have. Until next week, I hope all remains well, and please do have a safe week ahead. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.